What's up, my beautiful people? Exile451 here with yet another daily dose of Reddit Happy. Hope you're all doing great today. We're gonna kick it off with some stories out of r/AskReddit. So, let's get to it. Alright, so the AskReddit question was, teachers of Reddit, what's the funniest answer you've come across while grading papers? Oh, and there are some good ones in here, let me tell you. A third grader's homework was to define vocab words, and one of them was parent. His definition? Adults who own you. Well, he's not entirely wrong. I used to mark chemistry papers for a university. There was a question, the content I can't recall, but an essay-style answer was required. Anyways, this one student had a complete mind blank and instead wrote this elaborate story about a lonely dragon who couldn't make friends. So lots of different animals would take pity on him and try to be his friend, but in excitement he would set them on fire. This went on for 3 or 4 sides, stopped mid-sentence, there was a line break, and they started the correct essay. To this day, I wonder if the dragon ever made any friends without accidentally killing them. Poor guy. You gotta give them props for trying though. And I guess that did spur their memory some so that they could answer the question. Still, I would be very interested as well on whether or not that dragon did ever make a friend. Follow up to that one. I had a similar-ish event back in my grad school days. The question asked why there was an observed color change in the reaction, and the student clearly had no clue and wrote a very elaborate story. And then there's a bunch of sciencey stuff in this response, which is supposed to be aimed at non-chemists, but the only thing I could get out of reading it was the teacher from Peanuts going wah 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 wah. That's about my level of understanding when it comes to chemistry, so I'm just jumping to the next part of this. Back to the question, the answer on the exam told the story about 2 families who disapproved of their children's mixed marriage and caused the product to turn black out of shame. There were no real racist undertones. They were quite obvious and pretty explicitly stated. I had my students in US history create advertisements to convince people to move onto the Great Plains. One student simply drew a donkey and wrote, "Bring that ass here, boy." Oh. Oh, that's a good one. List 3 different gases: air, farts, and gravity. I didn't realize gravity was a gas. Okay then. On a thermodynamics test, the students had to define a diabetic. One student answered, someone who needs insulin. I think I gave them half credit. I remember that there was once in our Chinese character test, we had to figure out what these specific Chinese characters meant. It's a proverb and roughly means a school's dog will be able to read and write in 3 years. Or you get affected by what you're with. But a kid wrote, if you can't figure it out in 3 years, you're stupider than a dog. He probably did it on purpose. Yeah, the proverb and his answer aren't terribly dissimilar. Not a teacher, but as a secondary school student, I completely forgot what metallic bonding was in my chemistry exam. The real one, not the mock. So, in the 10 minutes I had left over at the end, after I'd finished all the other questions, I drew a diagram of an iron atom and a magnesium atom with speech bubbles depicting their conversation. Things like, "Hi there, how's your day been?" and similarly friendly things. At the bottom I wrote a caption saying, "As you can see, these metallic atoms are bonding. They will be friends in no time." If I were your teacher, I would have definitely given you points for originality on that one. In a history entrance exam for a school, I forgot what caltrops were called. So I explained what they were and drew a picture of them halting a charging horse. Aced the test with 88%, but unfortunately the teacher who marked it died that summer, so I never got to ask him if he liked my picture and whether it contributed to my high mark. Well, unless they were specifically asking you what those were called, I mean, you got it right, technically. Maybe a little unorthodox, but you did get it right. Not in school as such, but on a university language exchange program in Russia, I went into a cafe, ordered coffee, and asked for "sucre, please." The waitress stared at me like I'd grown 2 heads, and several minutes of increasingly exasperated attempts to explain what I meant by "sucre" in my very limited Russian ensued. Eventually, a light clicked on in her head and she snapped her fingers. "Oh, Sahar!" So I sidled back to my table with my Sahar to find my girlfriend absolutely killing herself laughing. Apparently, suker, which does mean sugar in a couple other languages, sounds a lot like the Russian version of the B word. Who knew? Certainly not me. Anyway, that's the story of how I possibly made a whole cafe of waitresses hate me right from the first day I went there. Yeah, that could be a little awkward. A Japanese quiz where a student wrote, "I don't know, I'm sorry, I didn't study, dishonor on my family and my cow." She drew the saddest cow on the bottom of the page. She wasn't Chinese for the record. Edit, the dishonor on your family and cow thing is a Mulan reference, which is Chinese. Nothing to do with the quiz or class itself. Oh, and there was also an assignment where the numbers were written in Japanese and you had to write it in Arabic numbers. Example 1, 2, 3. This idiot wrote in Roman numerals. I laughed, and then I wanted to stab him. Made up quotes in a religion exam. The Bible says, "Thou shalt not lotto." Second grade, write a journal about what you did this weekend. Student consistently added more and more elaborate drinking games that his dad and mom played at home with their friends. Okay, that could actually be kind of fun to read, especially from a second grader's perspective. Had a student turn in some code with profanity in the comments. In their defense, R deserves that kind of response. I told them officially I have to give them a talk about professionalism, and unofficially, my thesis has far worse in it. A student wrote an advertisement for the new season of 24 in the top corner of the paper. Strange, but it did remind me to watch it. Oh man, now that's a throwback. 24, frick. I think I have the first 5 seasons on DVD. Have not watched them in like over a decade, but yeah, I loved that show back in the day. Not a teacher, but I saw the question, how do you construct a door? And for the answer, they drew a Minecraft crafting table with 6 blocks of wooden planks in it. I know that's one way. Not a teacher, but when I was taking my driver's test, this had been written under a question. Question, how much is the fine for fleeing an officer? Answer, nothing, if you're fast. Not a teacher, but I was once visiting my buddy at college near the end of his semester. He had a physics final to take that morning, and I didn't want to sit in his dorm room alone with his roommate because that would be awkward. So I decided to go with him to take the final. Since there were a couple hundred people there, I went unnoticed. Turns out, my experience in carpentry did not help me with the advanced physics exam, so instead, I decided to fill it out as best I could, which came out in the form of a cartoon about Newton and his 3 laws. Hopefully, it at least broke up the monotonous task of grading exams. Yeah, it probably did a little bit. For good or ill, I don't know, but it probably broke it up a bit. Just finished marking a set of English and American culture papers. One student wrote theirs on the film Bended Like Beckham, while another wrote a very engaging essay about the popular Mary Shelley book, Frank Einstein. Not a teacher, but in a maths mock exam, I was given a question where there was a circle and it said, draw a chord on the circle. I had no idea what it was, and so I drew out a fretboard and an F-bar chord on a guitar. Teacher laughed about it next lesson and gave me the mark since it was drawn right. I'm still a student, but have my internship in an IT school. The first year, students had to make a test on the basics of database stuff. And they had to draw a binary search tree and stuff like that, which I had to grade. The teacher was too lazy to type out, draw a binary search tree every time with the numbers. So that part of the test said, draw the tree. Every student drew almost correct binary search trees except for one. He didn't remember how to draw one, so he just drew a normal tree with really detailed leaves. For the balanced tree, he drew the same tree on a seesaw, and according to him, the root of the tree was the part at the bottom of the tree used to get nutrients out of the ground. He didn't pass the test. Gee, I wonder why he didn't pass. When I was a high school kid, a teacher showed us a story that a year 7 had written on his test paper but didn't get a chance to finish it. So naturally, we finished it for him, with a crude but PG ending, involving farting dragons. Unbeknownst to us, the student was extremely religious and ended up complaining to the principal of our school about our work. Luckily, he saw the funny side of it and nothing came of it. Farting dragons. Grading finals for an evolutionary bio course, and one of the questions was to discuss or list the development of a baby from fertilization to birth. The students were given 2 or 3 blank pages to go to town on. One student wound up doing a series of diary entries from the zygote's perspective. It was incredibly creative. They received full credit for being totally right. Also, another question was to discuss the evolutionary lineage from tree shrew to humans. The student blanked and drew a series of stick figures. I believe after much discussion, they received half a point for creativity. Not quite an exam paper, but my mom works as a teaching assistant at a primary school, and she was marking some work from her extra literacy group. One of the questions was to write about something they learned over the weekend. The best answer was from one boy who wrote, "I learned that it's not a good idea to wake up my big brother in the morning. May the good Lord have mercy on your soul." No, never wake up your older siblings. I mean, I, being the oldest, would not know that, but I know enough stories of people who have done that and they've regretted it. And I know my siblings always regretted it when they woke me up. Taught a computer science class at a university once. At the time, I did not believe the old adage that most Chinese students cheat that I had been told around the department. Then, I was grading an assignment the student turned in. The code was much better than what I believed his code to be like, and then the clincher. Right in the middle of the code was a comment copied from URL, with the URL to be the exact same code. Flabbergasted. The rest of the semester started by using Google to search for code similar to the ones students turned in. And yep, every Chinese student in the class was copying the code. Was really disheartened. Oh, I can imagine you would be. I would be. I'm doing a practicum where I teach college-level math classes on the fundamentals of elementary mathematics. There was a word problem involving exponentials and how fast a penny could increase if you increased it by some amount every day. Can't remember exactly. And you were asked how long until the man reached $1 million. The person responded, "I don't know, but the guy would probably be dead before he got all the money." Not inaccurate. They had to use vocab words in an original sentence. The word was usurp, and the sentence, "I usurp on my pancakes." My nephew's response to this question: if you could accompany Christopher Columbus on an adventure, where would you go? His response: nowhere, because he's dead. Yeah, I can get the logic behind that. That was r/AskReddit, and if you want more funny or uplifting AskReddit content, then go ahead and check out the playlist link in the description below. Now you guys go out there, have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow. Until then, I'm Exile451. Stay beautiful, people.